Hello and welcome to another Merchant of Magic vlog or video interview. Today we are joined by a very talented magician. He is a worker in Las Vegas, the home of magic, and his name is Sean Scott. Can you say hello, Sean?
Hello, everyone. It's nice to be here.
So, Sean, if you wouldn't mind, for anyone that doesn't know about you and some of the products that you've had out in the recent years, could you tell us a bit more about yourself and your background in magic?
Sure. I've probably been in magic for a little over 25 years, so I'm, about that old, but not that young. I got into magic like a lot of people. I wanted to be the next David Copperfield. I wanted to do things on stage. So I think those were my interests, but over time that's changed, and I've kind of moved a lot out of performing and more into creating magic tricks. It took a while for me to realize what I was good at, and maybe what I wasn't, as good at as some other people I would watch. And once I kind of established that, it only took, 15 years. Everything seems to work well now. So I started creating effects for magicians about 10 years ago. And what I started doing was creating what I call organic types of magic effects. So those are things that kind of have a minimal amount of props involved, or at least they appear that way.
Yeah, at least they appear that way. Yeah.
Yes. So I've had a lot of fun doing that, and that kind of has put me in touch with, I think, what helps make magic interesting to the people. Instead of convoluting it sometimes with so much in a routine, we'd like to add, things sometimes in magic that really aren't necessary. When the core of it always is to the spectator, what took place, not what it took place with, if that makes any sense at all. So
yeah, I understand what you're saying there, definitely.
Okay, all right.
So I understand you still do some performing. Do you still do street performing on Freemont Street in Vegas?
I do street performing, and it was a funny thing, kind of how it worked out. I moved to Vegas from Indianapolis, Indiana. That's where I've lived for most of my life. But I moved there 5 years ago, and I moved there kind of wanting to do more with creating magic effects, but I also had to make a living at the same time as well, before that was really in full swing. So I went out and started street performing, and I realized very quickly how much I did not know about street performing and how much I thought I knew. And I can kind of describe the Las Vegas street scene a little bit. It's a little bit different than maybe places in your country, places around the world where you have your audiences are a little more captive. And I don't say that too casually, but in Las Vegas the problem is distraction. There are so many things in that city. Yes, have you been there, Ben?
Yeah, I have. I mean, even the roof in Fremont Street can start up at any point, and then everyone's like, "Hey, look at that!"
Yes.
As well as all the other performers, the casinos, the constant noise. There's always things going on everywhere you look in Vegas. So,
and did you happen to remember the street performers and the type of variety that you saw?
Do you know, I only spent on Fremont Street. I only spent a short amount of time one evening. So I didn't soak up as much down there as I'd like to have done.
If you can remember.
Yeah. I mainly went there to see the lights in the ceiling. So sure. I spent most of my time having those people flick the cards at me.
Yes, yeah. You can create your own deck of 52 cards at the end of walking from one end to the other. It's another trick, yeah. But Fremont Street has many varieties of street performers. You have everything from homeless people who go out there and they are trying to do something in the way of performing. You have people in costumes for the majority, and sometimes not much of one. I mean, there are people that are very close to full nudity with what they're wearing. And there's also people banging buckets. There's always music playing, usually out of the speaker, so it's a very chaotic environment. Actually, a colleague of mine out there said, he described it this way. His name's Adam Flowers. If you took Disney World and Walmart and you put them together, and then they had kids, that would be Fremont Street.
That's not.
If those references make sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, answering the question, I street perform out on Fremont Street regularly. Now, I haven't done it for the last 4 months, only because I've been back here in Indianapolis visiting family. I haven't seen them for 5 years, so it was time to come say, hello, I'm your son, remember me?
Yeah, remember, hi.
Yes, the one who ran off to go play in the
in city, of all places.
Yes. So that's what I do. And I've kind of had to learn street performing all over again and in a new environment. But what I've learned there is kind of a different approach to it. And a lot of street performers, experts, people that we all know and love who work the street, they will tell you that Fremont Street is not the typical place to work. Even that it's not the street. And I think they're correct. It is its own type of environment. What you have to do there is you have to give people a reason to stop and watch you, as opposed to what might be 3 feet from you.
Sure.
And you have to compete with that. You have to be funnier than that, perhaps, or at least more interesting in some way. So that's my challenge on Fremont Street.
So do you have, I know in like Leicester Square, a very busy place for street performers in London, they actually have a system where they put their names down on a sheet and they each get 15 minutes and there's a whole system to it. Is that the same in Fremont Street, or is it a bit more just go there and do what you like?
Yes, that's interesting you say that. A year ago, that's what Fremont Street went to. Before the fact, you could kind of come and work, first come, first serve, but that changed. And now we have a lottery that we enter into every day. So you have to be chosen to go out, and you have a spot. You have actually zones, they call them, and like these little circles on the ground that look like poker chips, believe it or not. So we go out there at a certain time. If we're chosen, we get the spot for 2 hours, and yeah, it has its benefits. It doesn't always keep a performer from standing next to you or trying to stand next to you, but it's a thing that's still it's quite a bit in some sway back and forth in terms of legally. They are still trying to decide what that's going to look like. So there are people still maybe challenging it in our courts. So we'll see if it remains that way. But yeah, we do have a system. I actually prefer the system.
Good. Because so I mean, obviously you've got the distractions and everything. That's a huge limitation. What other sort of? I imagine you've got being surrounded by everyone. People can shout out whatever they like, whenever they like, and things like that.
Sure.
How would you deal with that situation? What's say you come up and are all of your tricks designed to be surrounded and everything like that? Do you have lines which you have practiced to say back to hecklers and things?
Yes. Yeah, the answer to all of that is yes. And people do occasionally say things, even if the answer isn't, correct. They still say it as if it is, and it does challenge the energy and the momentum of your show. But usually if you kind of keep going, even if someone is right, no one else necessarily knows that's the truth. Gazzo has visited Fremont Street several times, and I've watched him and other performers out there deal with that situation. And it's interesting, watching Gazzo. You can really tell that he understands the situation and knows how to maintain. Hey, this is my show. Don't even think about it.
he's got experience under his belt.
Yes. You can certainly say things, to combat that, to address that. However, it is a situation, and I don't know if this is true as much over there. You could tell me this. You have to be careful what you say. You may say the wrong thing to the wrong person.
Yeah, very much.
And then that's a completely new entanglement that you don't really want to have as a street performer. So you have to ride the line. So yes.
So what tip, like top tip, would you give anyone that's thinking of going out and starting street performing? Do you have like one single piece of advice that has helped you the most?
Sure. One thing that I would say, and this is the thing that I'm still even working on personally, is know what to say when there's nothing to say. You want to keep the show going. You don't want pauses. And if you can stand there and you can talk without pause, people tend to give you more of their time because you look like you know what you're doing.
Sure. I suppose if you finished a trick and you need to get some props for another trick or something like that, if you suddenly go quiet, that's a perfect exit point for a spectator. They might be like, oh, now's a good time for me to head off. They start thinking about what they're doing in their day. Right.
My show is layered so that one effect hangs on the other. Like for instance, after I finish the card segment of my show, which is more toward the beginning, it's after roaming. Once I found the card that's signed, instead of everyone going their separate ways at that point, I quickly give the card back to the spectator and I say, put the card in your pocket, hold it in your pocket, keep it there. If I was able to make that card vanish out of your pocket, that would be incredible. And so I banter this for a couple of minutes, and that makes people gets people who are about to walk away or about to go the other direction to stay, and they start to kind of float back toward the circle and watch to see what's going to happen. So I try to layer every effect like that, so it keeps people still coming back.
Sure. There's I know a street performer in London, and he it's a card throw. He throws a card on top of a building, but all throughout his show he's saying this card will be up on top of that building, just one throw it'll be up there, and he keeps referring to it, and you see people that are almost going to go away, and then he says that and they go, oh, hang on, let's wait around and hang around for that. So
exactly.
Yeah. So what sort of things do you look for in the tricks that you perform on the street?
Fremont Street, I think that some of the best magic, and this depends on what time you're out there during the day working. At night it's very chaotic, so you have to have something that's very visual, very strong, because you may not have the luxury of having a lot of what you say being heard.
Yeah,
so
of course.
You can't stop them with maybe what you're saying. It also has to be more of what maybe you're doing, along with what you might say in the evening. The effects I tend to use are visual. So I have roaming. Roaming was kind of the first thing that I created when I moved to Vegas. It was just out of the need to stop people, to get them interested. A lot of people on the street, they'll do the Hummer card. Like they'll throw the card right. But some of the guys who are working that trick, they've actually worked in magic shops in Vegas for quite a while, demoing the trick.
It's demmed everywhere in Vegas. You go into
Yes,
any of the Houdini's magic shops, and it's the first thing you see, and you're offered to buy it straight away. So
exactly. There are a couple of guys who work out there. One that you may know, Chris Randall. And Chris Randall probably does one of the best ones out there, but he worked in a magic shop and in Houdini's, and he got very good at it. So he'll add some things to it, which I think would make it a stronger piece. So I needed to come out and do something that was equally as interesting to people. And the way I approached it was using an object that they normally might have, which would be a cell phone.
yeah.
Because people normally don't walk around with a playing card in their pocket. And, try to relate to that maybe as much as they might their own cell phone. They know the weight of it, and I think that's kind of what makes roaming stronger in that aspect.
Just for anyone that doesn't know, can you just clarify on what roaming is? I know we all know, but there might be some people that don't know for sure.
Right. So roaming is a floating cell phone effect, and it kind of works along with a set of headphones that you might have. You plug your phone in, and then the phone kind of begins to float in the air. You can pull it in all these different directions, and it's kind of immediately makes people ask, "How's this happening? Is this an app? Are those special headphones that he's using?"
I think it was it Justin Flom who said it looks like a koi carp swimming through the sea. Through the air. It really is a great illusion, a great levitation. It looks the dexterity you have on it as well looks amazing. So
yeah, thanks. So it definitely has some really nice features of being able to make it go in different directions. And then at the end of that, you can borrow the spectator's phone, and you do a bit where the phone floats up, for a few seconds. You unplug it and you hand it back to them.
This is their actual phone
Yes.
from their pocket. Yeah.
Yes. And it's funny just the way it evolved. It all evolved from working on the street. At one time I was only doing the first portion of that. You float the phone. You put the phone that you have, and then I heard some people yell out, "Do it with my phone." And that's that moment when you're on the street and somebody says something, and you either have to accept the challenge, or you have to,
admit defeat.
"Oh, I wouldn't want to do that," So I thought, it would make it a stronger effect to be able to do that. So that's part of roaming now.
Yeah. So it is a fantastic effect. So just a bit more about roaming. Like how long? It's quite interesting. You said that it was the first thing you invented when you came to Vegas. I didn't know that. I thought it was your latest creation. But so how long did it take you to come up with a final sort of design for roaming?
I probably took about 2 years to finally come up with what I use now.
Right.
That's just making little changes.
Yeah, I think obviously you've hashed out all the problems and everything like that just by working it.
Right. I hope so. As far as I can conceive, I think that's the most part. Most of any problems or challenges have been addressed with it.
So do you have any advice for any of our customers that have pre-ordered roaming? Like, how would you, any advice for performing it? Has it ever gone wrong for you? How would you get out of a situation where maybe it goes wrong? Have you ever had that experience?
As far as, what I would say to customers who pre-ordered it, and who see the potential in it, the best thing about the effect, I think, is the kind of movement that you get out of it. With this kind of effect, something floats in the air this way. You can stop on a dime, turn the phone, bring it up in the air. It has some really nice, smooth, cohesive kind of movement to it. I would say when you get it, really slow down with the effect and try to just make the levitation look smooth. Focus on that, and it actually is quite easy and even addictive. You know, once you get up and running with it, you just kind of see how the basic effect works. You know, you'll really understand. Wow, you know, this has to look amazing to who's watching it. You know, so to work on that part the most. With anything that could go wrong with it, not really. I haven't had any problems where anything went terribly wrong. That's the nice thing about it, the way I've made it.
I suppose sorry to interrupt there. I suppose the levitation is different to the Hummer card. With the Hummer card, the card rotates, and that can create some problems with the method. Whereas you don't have that with roaming. You don't have that rotation, so there isn't that problem that could arise over performing it a few times.
Right.
Do you understand what I'm talking about there? I don't want to expose anything, but
sure. You can still do some of the same things that you might do with Hummer cards, certainly, but it's much more user friendly than what the Hummer card might be.
Yeah, watching your tuition video, like just watching you do the movements where it's just going back and forth is like you say, it can be quite addictive. I was watching that thinking, oh, I want to be playing around with this right now. I want to be doing that. But you know, especially the moment where you turn it down and it goes down towards the floor, I think that's, you know, yeah. Movements like that really sell this as a levitation and something that's floating through the air, as opposed to something that might be elevated or dangling or something like that.
Right. That's my favorite move, honestly. What you described, and the subtleties are nice with it, where you can pass your hand completely over it and around it. I think you have the way this works allows you to do that.
Yeah, you do that with the headphone cable as well, don't you? Which is
yes.
a really nice moment, because it's it gives you, the headphone cable actually acts as the ring would for if you were going over a spectator levitated on stage, which
right.
is perfect and organic in itself. So yeah, I think we're obviously going to have links up and posts and everything about roaming and where you can get it if you haven't already got it. Could you just enlighten us quickly about like your creative process? Only because you're one of these creators that I've seen come about with, like, you know, the first thing that got my attention was Margarita XL, where you produced like a huge like champagne glass from nowhere.
Right.
I still have no idea how that actually works. And then there was Key, where you pull your fingers, you interlock your fingers around a post and you pull them straight through. You know, obviously Banderismo, and there's loads of others. You've got a very unique kind of process. You don't seem to, you almost have brand new methods. Is that something which you aspire to do every time you create?
I usually start with the effect first. I know people like to start out by having a method sometimes, you know, how a trick can work, but you know, Key started with, you know, give you a little background, a little more about me. I said I was raised in Indianapolis, and the last 10 years that I lived here, I actually moved into an artist commune. It sounds a bit of a romantic idea, but basically it was an old carburetor factory, and it was remodeled for artists to come in and have live workspaces inside. So when I did that, I was a magician and living in a building with 30 other artists who did painting, photography, sculpture, writing, musicians. And during that time, I think my attitude changed about what I did. And it was more about what I could create would be just as good as something another magician maybe created that maybe their effect had more of a bigger bang or a bigger impact to it. The reason I bring that up is that I learned that what I created was just as important, just as relevant as what somebody else might create that might have a bigger bang or a bigger climax at the end of it. So I learned, I guess, not to compare myself to other magicians, after that experience. I think a lot of my effects, they kind of end up with a canceling kind of idea. So there's maybe two things that happen in the trick, two different methods, and one method kind of cancels the other. That's the same with roaming. It works that way. Key works that way.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I think you layer some nice subtleties in your effects, like rise. You got that, everything's all motivated so that, just when they're going, yeah, I want to look at the bottom of his shoe, you show the bottom of your shoe, which is great. So,
right.
Yeah, it's not like you've just got a method and you've gone, there you go, now put it out. You've actually really thought about all the choreography, should we say, about the effect.
Right. Yeah, I try to. Rise is probably it probably took the longest of anything, anything to create. But yes, I try to, not leave something sitting out for the spectator to point back to. Sure.
So have you got anything in the future? Any more ideas coming out soon? Are you just going to go back to the drawing board at the moment? What's coming out in the future for Sean Scott?
I think there's some things with cell phones I still may continue to come out with. It's such a strong point of reference with a spectator. Everyone has a phone these days, and it's not going away. It's part of our life. It's I know there's so much we do with card magic, which is great. But I think the cell phone is definitely at least the new deck of cards for the layman. They have a phone in their hands, much more of the time than they have a deck of cards. So the more they can relate to what you are showing them, I think the better your magic can be. It gives you a stronger place to create from. Easier almost.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I think that's definitely the way that magic is moving, is to be a lot more organic, to be able to take all these things that you see in everyday life and perform a miracle with it.
Right. I think it's, I know a lot of magicians, have a bit of an opposition to cell phone magic, but I think it's something we have to work with and not against. Don't fear technology. Find a way into it.
Yeah. No, that's a great piece of advice, actually. I think there are certain people that have embraced technology. Look at Marco Tempest, for example. He's made a whole career out of technology being his thing. So
exactly.
And he's immensely creative with a lot of what he does there. So yeah, there's a lot of avenues to explore, I would say.
Sure. Yeah, he's a favorite.
So, well, I'd just like to thank you very much for taking this time to do a little interview with us at the Merchant of Magic. Everybody, this has been an interview with Sean Scott, creator of Roaming. We'll have some more details of how you can pre-order Roaming, and obviously there's some blog posts and stuff like that. Sean, have you got any final words?
To anyone who's pre-ordered it, thank you very much. I think you'll be happy with Roaming. It's really new material, and it's a really exciting effect for me to create and to continue to talk to my customers about. So thanks again. And everyone else who's considering it, please do.
All right, so thanks again, Sean. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I've been Ben Williams. This has been a video interview for the Merchant of Magic with Sean Scott, creator of Roaming. So say bye-bye, Sean.
Cheers.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.